Bocca.
Chats with
Will Horowitz.
Chef Will Horowitz of Duck's Eatery is my hero. He's a master of heritage techniques and can smoke and cure nearly anything. He once entered a beet that he cured his prosciutto into a charcuterie contest, and he took second place. He also made the most delicious sandwich I've ever tasted. And he's also the only person I know to ever have COVID. So let's get into it.
What's good, man? Good to see you, dude. It's been fucking forever.
It's been a minute, yeah. A hot minute.
How's life? Things are good?
I can't really complain, man. I know people are having a tough time, but just been trying to stay active and productive, and got this little project I've been working on, so it's been really nice.
Where are you right now? You're not in the city, yeah?
No, I'm in Los Angeles. I'm in Hollywood with the rest of the bums.
Gotcha. How long have you been there for?
On and off for about 2 years.
Nice. Are you still? Who are you? Are you doing freelance, or are you doing stuff for Lost, or?
Everything. I got an agent out here, an agent out in Rome, so I kind of go where the work is, you know?
Nice.
Digital nomad.
Oh, man.
Yeah. How you doing, man? What's going on with you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It's I'm personally recovering right now.
Yeah.
And I'm personally recovering right now, and then family's good. Restaurants are closed. I'm going to stay that way for a bit. And then, I'm just working on, most of my work is like R&D for companies, like product development and shit like that. So, and then I'll probably start writing again, working on more books and stuff.
That's good. I mean, so you had it, huh?
Yeah. I'm like, mine's been going on for a while. I tested positive about 2.5 weeks ago, and then I started coming down with symptoms about 3.5 weeks ago, and I say I'm like 90% good. I had like a real difficult soreness breathing in my lungs and stuff for so after all the flu shit that lasted for like a long time, and now honestly I just have some like allergy type feeling stuff, and I'm pretty much good, but I gotta get my antibody test and see where the fuck that's at, and you know it's that's still just a shit show. I know all the ones I sent to LA County and stuff were
bogus.
Yeah, they were bullshit. Yeah,
papayas were testing positive, I heard.
Yeah, they got them. It was from this company in fucking Indiana or somewhere, Ohio or somewhere, and they had got the shipment in this 2-week fucking window that where China exported them, but they're fucking I forget what it's called, the FDA in China, they actually didn't approve them. So you know, if you're not getting approved by the fucking FDA in China,
who knew the FDA existed in China?
That's gotta be real fucking brutal.
Yeah.
So it was like a 2-week window, and of course they didn't sell any. I've had like one socialite model chick I grew up with in Miami try to sell me one for $150, and then the only other big buyer has been LA County, bought like 100,000.
Oh man, that's sad.
No, it's pretty funny. So,
well, I'm glad you're doing better and you're on the mend at least.
Yeah, man. I'm all right. I'm good. I've been kind of laying low a little bit.
Yeah.
Plotted how I want to be and who I want to be in all this, you know?
Yeah. So, a lot of people have had time to reflect if they wanted to or not. What have you discovered in your forced vacation? Have you started new projects or anything?
Well, I mean, it's, I had just started a bunch of projects for food R&D and science right before this.
Mm-hmm. So
I've been working on that stuff continuously, even in quarantine. I've been FaceTiming every day in my laboratory with my assistant and shit, and just fucking her being my hands essentially and not being able to taste shit, which is especially difficult, especially when there was a solid 2 weeks where I literally couldn't taste anything. So it's
so that's for real. You lost your taste, your sense of taste.
Mine was around 90% gone. I'd say there were certain things like salinity and acidity that I could still taste, and then everything else was pretty much shot. Same thing with smells. So like they say that part of it's neurological. So a lot of people were scared that some of those things are a little bit, could be
Brain
a little
damage.
more permanent. Yeah. So
I mean, were you freaking out? I mean, I would freak out if I was a chef and lost my sense of taste.
I mean, listen, 20 years, it's been a few years, but 20 years of smoking cigarettes and a decade of teenage years and beyond of smoking and huffing God knows fucking what up my head, nose and head.
It's a hard life. Any way you look at it. Drop in the bucket.
It's like it's actually hilarious when you think about it. It's like any demographic occupation, the people that need to survive by their taste buds the most probably treat them worse than fucking anybody, right?
Yeah.
The
irony of it.
Like, you learn to adjust. But so much of that stuff, for me, like when I create stuff or tasting things, a lot of it is my memory and like visual, my process for creating things, and even just recall memory is all visual, is all picture based. So like it's even flavors. And I'll tell you like what I can barely remember like my best friend's name for 3 years, but I could tell you what like a room looked like when I was like 4 years old and where everything was. And it's the same thing for like flavors. Like I could visualize like an image of how flavors come together in something. And that it's not perfect, but it's luckily for me that's my creative process, and
it's like hardwired into your brain.
It can get me at least like maybe 80% there or something.
That's wild.
Well,
you're definitely
wrong, but
no, I think you're the biggest mad scientist chef I know. You've done some wild things, especially in the smoke world. I've had your watermelon that just kind of knocked my socks off. So I can't. I can't imagine what you're working on right now.
I mean, it's a mixture of things. Like a lot of the stuff I do is like, it's funny. I've put myself in this weird space where there's a lot of like maybe big brands or companies that might try calling me to, kind of create something that their R&D teams can't, just be a little more out of the box and interdisciplinary.
Yeah.
So like a lot of those projects, might be like, what's the new Impossible Burger, or what's the new, plant-based fucking beef jerky or jerky or whatever you want to fucking call it. So, and then simultaneously still doing R&D for like, I'm probably the only fucking chef in the world that's doing this, where it's like, I'll do the next Impossible Burger type project and simultaneously doing like an actual like smoked beef product
the yin and the yang
at the same time. So I'm kind of playing both cards. But yeah, outside of that, man, honestly, I'm not taking a break in terms of any more smoked watermelon type stuff, but I'm working on like some children's book stuff, like cook stuff, a lot of like deep sustainability issue stuff. Like I'm interested with like the COVID food system stuff and what's happening there, and what it's the problems it's not creating necessarily, but the problems it's exposing, and that stuff's interesting to me, especially like how that is going to end up translating post COVID, because it's obviously causing an enormous amount of problems. But it's also accelerating a lot of things in society that were really in the works,
Right.
So a good basic example of that is companies now looking at their office space costs, right?
Right.
And so things that were really in the works for a while, but like all of a sudden,
expedited.
They have to get fucking expedited. So like if you have a farm or Union Square and they're trying to figure out for years, okay, how do we make this more delivery consumer based, or how do we connect the dots more from like local to actual local people and make things more accessible? Well, all of a sudden we just had to figure out what we've been working on for years. Now we're scrambling to figure out in like 3 weeks. Right. So like
the fire's been turned up. It's like,
it's a lot
now,
of sinking
cook
and swimming. So it's like it's it's interesting to see what that salad going to look like. And so like I have some ideas of what I think some of that stuff might look like, and so wherever I position myself and what I work on now will be, as I'm like getting healthier again, will be slowly like just geared towards that, I think,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, while you've been sick, have you been cooking a lot? What's your relationship with food these days? Has it changed?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's interesting. My girlfriend is not vegetarian, she's pescatarian, but it's but most of the time, honestly, like for me, it's so much of the work I do is based around heritage techniques, is what I call them.
Sure.
So just studying the past, and truthfully, the whole basis around like relearning how to live again, and the stuff I write about, is the majority of that is based around your pantry. How do you set up a pantry? And in this case, my girlfriend is actually half Chinese, so it's like we have like jars in here, at the other place too, of like salted eggs and
Right.
different types of fermented vegetables
Pickling
and things like that.
Yeah.
And so and then we have bags and bags of just like fucking rice and legumes and things like that. So like it's really, really, really simple. And for me, like I'm naturally coming, my original background was like wilderness survival and stuff like that.
Right.
So I'm like naturally kind of a crazy person, fucking like prepper.
So this is your best case scenario. You're living the dream.
This is like easy like shit for me in terms of that stuff, So I got like backup, I got fucking freezers and lockers full of fucking like bacons and things you can't even imagine. But nonetheless, it's like really, really simple, and like it's this idea of like having a pantry at home is so basic in terms of okay, you have a starch, like you have bags of rice, you have some sort of grain, right? You have things that are fermented or salt cured, like for instance, I was just saying like eggs or different types of kimchi and krauts and whatnot, and then you have things that are dried, so let's say mushrooms or something like that, and then you're literally cooking maybe one type of fresh vegetable or fish or something like that,
right?
Or meat. So it's like what it comes down to is that you're fully stocked and able to rotate all these things and have different combinations and like permutation of food, and you're really just having one or two fresh things with your food a day, and that setup takes a lot of different forms, but in every country and culture in the world, it's the history of time, right? So like it changes over, like the way we think of like our idea of like if someone doesn't cook much and they want to cook something for like their significant other or whatever the fuck it is, right? Like they're going to go to Whole Foods or wherever, and they're going to take a recipe list, and they're going to buy all this shit, and they're going to be left with a million other half-empty boxes of things,
right?
And that's all going to stack up in their kitchen and shit, and grow mold, and it ends up being more expensive than if they probably went out and had a bottle of wine too.
Right.
But it's the thought that counts, and the and the end of the day, it's like it's not a sustainable way of living, right? And that's because that's not what cooking is. Like cooking at home is like involves so that you have all these types of pantry ingredients that you're making, you're buying, you're doing whatever, and that you're able to really just go to the farmer's market every day, or in this scenario, maybe once a week or whatever it is, and just buy enough to map out like fresh greens and fresh, whatever that's seasonal. So when I'm going to the
meal normally,
so when I'm going to get
fresh.
something seasonal, when I'm going to get something at the farmer's market, I'm not getting something that like is like my meal. I'm getting something that's going to go really, really well with these eggs that we cured like 2 months ago, with this rice and this, salted ham or whatever it is that I made 6 months ago. That's perfect right now, or guanciale. I mean, so much of your stuff is Italian, right? So it's like, I grew up with a grandma that was Italian chef, and then all my friends, growing up were first generation and in my community, and so me, I'm I'm Jewish, but I'm still over there every Sunday afternoon for all the big lunches and
food culture. Yeah.
I'm always, and in my childhood memories of my best friend growing up, his name was Vito, and they had rabbits in the backyard, which were his pets and stuff. But of course, his father had him take care of. Of course, one day, I think it was a fire alarm at school, and we had to go home early. He caught his mom fucking bringing one up, and the entire time they kept telling him for years that they just kept going missing or something, and his father would bring back and their family's all from Puglia, and his family would bring back I remember stuffed squid and little vacuum sealed pouches of donkey, with him. He'd be living back in Italy half the year.
Yeah.
They all worked for Metro North, but didn't speak a lick of fucking English, which still baffles me how they managed to do that for 30, 40, 50 years.
That's amazing.
But so it's I remember as a kid, smoking weed in all their basements, and there's the chilies hanging and tomatoes hanging, and here's all the jars,
donkey
and here's
meat.
all the hams. And these weren't gourmet people; these weren't anything. And then visiting with my grandparents, and they were half the year growing up in Tuscany, in a small town called Pienza. And it's a beautiful, beautiful town. It's where they filmed the original 1930s Romeo and Juliet.
Wow.
And it's the same thing, right? So that's one of the greatest food cultures in the world. This is the setup, though, an example of everywhere, you know. And so it's and so this is what I'm in a however many 500 square foot apartment in the East Village. There's not a lot of room to do a lot of that stuff, but it's that example, and it expresses itself in the history of every culture in the world that survived up to the Industrial Revolution, and it's the example now that's most relevant during COVID times, right?
Totally,
because that's what we have to fall back on.
Yeah, they worked and they were tried and true, and I think you know. I want to ask you about the books and the project that we're working on, this In Bocca series, because you are a heritage chef, and you do applaud it, and these techniques that have been passed down through generations that have worked and gotten humanity through the worst parts of culture. And these cookbooks come out of a time in the 70s that I feel was very unique in the sense that it wasn't a food culture necessarily. Cookbooks were just kind of burgeoning, and there wasn't a TV food culture that existed where everything was so precise. And you relied a lot on knowledge, where the recipes were a little bit like your grandmother telling you. I remember when you told me about it, the pastrami recipe, it changed a little bit every time. Sometimes it was a hot dog, then it was you gotta add sugar. It's depending on how she felt, almost the recipes would change. And that's how they're kind of written in the book. They're very passed down and orated. So what do you think about these cookbooks after seeing the project? Is this what you're talking about when you talk about heritage cooking?
Wait, so in terms of, and tell me a little bit more of the scope of the project, so I understand a little bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. So these were 20 cookbooks, one for each region of Italy. They're printed in cardboard on oatmeal paper, so they're crazy. And it's not just recipes, but it's a bit of history and pictures.
So the recipes are told in a storyline, kind of a little bit. A
little bit. It's take a handful of this and a pinch of that, and then go make the meat.
I have
prepare
a lot of books like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So
from different places in the world, I have a crazy book just like that from a couple of them actually from Newfoundland and Labrador.
Yeah.
The recipes are
what's that?
Boiled moose nose jelly and stuff. Yes. Real wild shit. Yeah. But they're you'll see that, and back in the day, even in this country, Smithsonian and a lot of different places sponsored books like that for a lot of indigenous groups. And you see that for a lot of First Nation groups all over. And there'll be excerpts from different contributors
Yeah.
in different areas, told in these recipes, told in these like one paragraph storylines, essentially, you know?
Right.
And they usually have a little fun in them. Like, you know, Pa would make us collect all the raspberry bushes and that, so we'd burn to smoke out the trout roe and this and that, you know, and they keep going. And that's so yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's pretty amazing. I'd love to fucking see those things.
I can't wait to show you when this is all over and you've been tested all clear. Make a little meal out of this, but like the way that you tell a recipe to someone and you tell someone to cook as a chef, are you so prescriptive that you break it down, you know, to the milliliter, or can you be loose in the directions and like let that be open to interpretation? Like, how does that affect cooking?
So I mean, you know, for me, I'm pitted in the complete, and this is like everything right now for me, the complete opposite extremes. So one half of my work, I'm working with, you know, national and international brands of distribution that have to be seriously scalable recipes. So you're going down to the gram, half gram, you know, tenth of a gram. Every form measurement, you're going down as small as you could really imagine in the cooking sense. For the way I cook in general, and like let's say in the restaurant, for example, or telling someone, I'm actually anti-recipes. So I about 5 years ago, I pulled my recipe book from the restaurant, and I told my kitchen that I don't want people using recipes anymore. There's a couple things where that excludes, you know, that have to be very, very precise, but very few. And the reasoning is that my goal is to teach people how to cook without recipes. I don't think they enable people. Yeah. I want to teach my chefs how to taste everything and how to really understand every ingredient and why it's going in and what it's doing, and really being able to, you know, recite the amount to put in for everything and know how to adjust it if something's different, you know? Sure. And really make sure at the end of the day that they're really cooking out of that type of intuition. And so that to me is much more fun. And without question, a lot of chefs historically might get really, really angry at me for that, especially in that, like, maybe a sauce might not taste exactly the same as this time to this time, but, like, you know, fuck them. So that's
you were never one for following the rules, man.
No, I mean that's so, you know, that's not why. Yeah, I'm not opening up a fast food chain. Right. I'm not. That's not interesting. There's no intrigue to me for that. You know, none of these restaurants are making much money to begin with these days. You know, right. So it's like, what's the point then? The point is just open up in the most passionate, interesting place you can do that, where people will genuinely feel good about what they're eating and love it and enjoy it. You know, and you know, maybe it's really interesting and mind-blowing to them. Maybe it just reminds them of their past, but like either way, it's a special experience for them, right? And you can't do that unless it's a special experience for the cooks too.
Right. You can taste the love.
Yeah, you could taste it, you know? So it's like, you know, it always used to crack me up every time I would do these, like, all these stupid chef trips every year, like the Raws and Mad and like all that stuff. Is that, like, I'd be there with, like, you know, these top chefs, like you know, a couple of times. Like, I actually stayed with for Italian chefs. I stayed with Massimo a couple of times and his family, and we all cooked together a couple of trips, and Albaraggi, all these people. It's always, I think they always got a kick at me because I'm just going, like, I'm just doing whatever. I'm just like, all of a sudden, oops, I just lit a table on fire. Like, it's like, but it's all just out of the box and just having fun and just being passionate. And like, I'm not trying to, my focus isn't to impress someone. It's not to be so finite in what I do. Right. That's like, it works opposite the type of food that I want to create. And when I think of the type of food that I want to create that like I love the most, it's the food that it's my grandma on one side, salting anchovies and rolling out pasta and baking and stuff every morning, and then on the Italian side, and then on the Jewish side, it's like I told you, the pastrami, just brining stuff and curing beef tongues, and she had big old Hungarian looking hands, and this lady I probably told you she was sold into servitude as a cook at 9 years old. Her family couldn't afford to keep her in southern Hungary, and
oh my God.
and so it's like she had big strong hands. She was and she'd be there like over these barrels, mixing sauerkrauts and shit like that. So it's like it's there was never a recipe or anything like that. It was just an instinctive knowledge that this is something living that you're handling. This egg could be bigger than this other egg. The yolk could be more dense. This piece of seaweed could be saltier than this piece of seaweed. Like
two onions taste different from each other.
It's just going to be a variable for all this stuff, because you're encouraging something that started off alive to taste really good, and so you can't force that, because as soon as you start forcing that, then there it goes. And also it's the same thing with how we cook and translate to in our kitchen right now. It's like, it's funny. I'm with my girlfriend who's never seen herself as like a really good cook, but I think she's really good. And she's only done recipes and stuff, but she has like a great eye of like watching me do something and watching the way I, handle a certain type of food, and then being able to kind of just replicate that in her own feel and touch,
Right.
And it's like, anyone that's worth anything as a cook is able to create great food on their own, just with their own instincts, even if it's something as simple as making scrambled eggs. It doesn't have to be something overcomplicated, but just to be able to feel those eggs and understand. I always like to joke around, like with my scrambled eggs, as silly as it sounds, or omelet or anything, that I can make scrambled eggs that will taste like I put like a quarter pound of cheddar cheese in them with just nothing but egg, water, and salt.
Right.
And it's just about learning to feel and touch, and that's like the true essence that isn't really something that should be there as a chef. That should just be there as human knowledge of how to live. And that's the separation between, I think, those books and what that transcribes in terms of culture and lifestyle to, what might be important we all see again now, in cooking and the COVID,
Bro, I can't imagine even asking you another question. That was the most beautiful sentiment. I'm going to get that whole paragraph tattooed on my back. No, I think it's exactly right what you're saying. Food is very sensual, not in a sexy way, but in a senses way. And it does apply to everything in life. And I think, a good cookbook or a good chef that understands food is someone that just cares about life in a lot of ways and how to live it well. So,
well, it's like you see with those places like in parts of Italy, or like for me, a lot of my time is spent in like over the years in Louisiana and places like that, and studying deep Appalachia and things like that. Is that what's always fun to me about when I'm in we have a lot of like family and friends where I cook in outside Lafayette, Louisiana, really deep into Cajun country, and the beauty of it there is that you're in the fucking bumblefuck swamps, with these people speaking some sort of crazy dialect of French that they've been doing for 400 years, with a strange Southern and Canadian twang to it, and then but the most important thing about that is that everybody is a chef, and you know what? Also, they're all artists, and besides that, they're all musicians. Not just one type of musician. They play a shit ton of different things. They're all farmers. They're all, that's a very deep-rooted sign of culture, right? And you'll find that in, all over different parts of Europe and Asia and different places, anywhere where there's a long-lasting group of probably very stubborn people that wanted to keep their culture.
Right. That do the same things the same way through generations, perfecting
They felt that these were important parts to their daily life, or even with all the modern convenience that's offered right now, that could still be a part of it. But that it was important for them to have music. It was important for them to have art. It was important for them to all know how to cook and have their little specialties, and there's things that are passed down, and their sourdough starters from their great grandma, and their all that stuff.
Yeah.
So,
that's a beautiful sentiment. Well, I hope you keep the culture alive. I look forward to seeing what comes out of your quarantine sickness. I hope it's some mad scientist fever dream stuff. And I hope you get better, man. I hope you continue to.
Yeah, I'll be good, man. Hopefully another week I'll be selling plasma out on the corner.
Yeah, man, we're gonna be sucking your blood.
When keep me updated on how the project goes, and send me links or pictures on any of those books whenever you get your hand.
Yeah, I will. Tell me your favorite region. I'll find you a book.
Ooh,
you can marinate on it. That's a hard question.
It's a tough question. I mean, family is Tuscany, but there's so much more interesting places even, I think.
All right, you think and then tell me, and I'll find you the book. You'll love it.
All right, deal.
All right, man. It's good talking to you.
Yeah,
Ciao.
Speak soon.
Bye. 20 rare cookbooks, 4 tasty dishes, 2 best friends. Watch the film, see the books, help Italy recover. Get hungry at ItalyInBocca.com.